Obese. What do you think of when you hear that word? Are you offended, ashamed, proud, anxious? It can bring a lot of things to people's minds, but in the end, obesity is something that we know of and hear every day, and it's basically what our bodies are telling us about how we're treating ourselves. It's easy to get there, and it's hard to leave there. And from personal experience, I've struggled with weight loss for a long time. When I was a kid, I was very, very heavy, and I was overweight, I was obese, and it was just from habits I developed as a child, and as an adult I never fixed them out of convenience. It was just easier to eat bad food, processed food that was making me heavier, and it took a long time to lose weight and to get even where I am now, and I'm by no means in good shape, but I'm a lot better. And it all comes from the stores and from how we decide to treat ourselves from day one. When you go to a store, what do you really see? You see unhealthy choices that are made cheap, and you see very good choices that are made expensive. And with deceiving labels like things that are saying fat-free or sugar-free, which aren't actually good for us, really confuse us and make it difficult to make proper choices. Doing what your body wants is hard. It's difficult with this crazy life that we live nowadays, but natural foods is really what our bodies crave the most. Unprocessed, untainted foods is what our bodies function off of, is what we were built to be made from. And my research results that I did for the poll say that out of the whole class, 50% of us agreed and thought that 3 out of 10 people got proper nutrition in the United States, and that's correct. 3 out of 10, 30%. Think about that. That's terrible. And that we also are pretty aware that more than 6 million cows are slaughtered just for their meat on a yearly basis for the United States meat market alone, which is at a very large number and hard to put into perspective sometimes, but 6 million, that's crazy. And everyone in class also seemed to have believed pretty well that even though your body might look healthy, that doesn't mean it is. Just because you're not obese or you're not emaciated doesn't mean your body isn't screaming for proper nutrition. And it'll come up in some way, it usually does. But let's start with obesity and its connotations and causes. It's defined as being grossly fat or overweight. But how do we get there? Well, we get there by years of our food being poisoned and twisted by market, craftiness and basically just lies, just trying to get us addicted and buying the product as the number one concern. Companies get us addicted with sugar, which enhances flavor even in things that aren't needing sugar, like ketchup and things like that have an immense amount of sugar that is not necessary really in any way. But essentially, little processed food has any positive nutritional value, and that's 80% of the market. Is what we buy is just processed food out of convenience for our busy lives. As Americans, we started to accept obesity as a way of life, begrudgingly maybe, but it's there. Attitudes of accepting your body as it is have, on top of bad habits, have even turned the mindset further into, even if your body's unhealthy, just live with it, rock it, it's yours, which everyone should be able to accept their body in some way, but encouraging unhealthy habits for the sake of being okay with yourself are not a good thing to do. It's very counterproductive for your health. And obesity is really just a correlation of treating our bodies poorly and not really a natural part of health. No, animals aren't naturally fat unless they're incredibly successful hunting, which doesn't happen. And the facts are that, given from the Food Research and Action Center, displayed in an article called Obesity in the U.S., which has information derived from the Journal of American Medical Association, which published this article in 2014. 37.7% of adult females are considered obese. 7.8% of those considered morbidly obese. And for males, we're not far behind. It's 35 and 5.5% respectively. That's crazy. That's a third of the population obese, not just overweight, but obese. And these facts and realities are a correlation with what has happened to our ingredients in our market. And these things are sold at discount for us. I mean, how often do we buy processed food? Do we check the nutrition information when we do so? Would you rather not know? A lot of people wouldn't, and that's a big problem. People don't want to know what's happening with their food. And we often get times where things like apples with healthy nutrition and sugars we just toss aside in the sake of caramel apples or whatnot, which is terrible. It's killing us slowly. We opt for things like what this label shows, which are sugar at 65 grams, which is 3 times what it should be daily, let alone in a 20-ounce bottle of anything. And then here we also have other names for sugar, basically high fructose corn syrup, sucrose, glucose. It's all just sugar and just killing us slowly, essentially. If we forget how important it is to have healthy options, to have natural food to our body. And we just want natural vitamins and minerals. We want natural things like that apple, or natural proteins like this salmon, which contribute to weight loss because purely a lot of protein is difficult for our bodies to digest in a way where it takes a lot of energy, so eating it burns more calories and fuels us for longer because it's such a dense, powerful thing for our bodies, which is great, and not enough people get enough of that. People get a lot of fats and a lot of unneeded saturated fats from hamburgers and things like that for their protein, where nuts would suffice perfectly, and it's terrible. According to articles produced by Harvard University in the realm of weight loss, higher proteins have many advantages due to being harder to break down and requiring more energy to do so. Like I said, that comes from Harvard. That's pretty significant. And this is only a handful of information that's out there. And even with that, what we've just learned, if you did learn something from this, we can face corrupt goods and consumer sales and treat our bodies right. As long as we're giving ourselves natural foods and not eating very much processed things like processed sugars, wheats, and rices, we can still have a healthy existence in this really hard to be healthy world that we live in. In the speech I covered obesity and the connection it has to our markets and diets and how our bodies crave natural food. It's a process, and we feed ourselves right and we're healthy. That's just as simple as that. No matter what convenience says, being healthy is just straight up better. I mean, in the end, our bodies mostly just look like what we treat them. And even when the world tells us to negatively treat our bodies for indulgence or for simple convenience, we can be healthy and it still tastes great.